Howdy everybody in YouTube land. What we have in front of us today is yet more Macintosh repair related stuff. So this is the Macintosh TV analog board, logic board, and tuner and all of that was sent in for repair. Now so far it looks like it's just your general run-of-the-mill recap work. It's going to be interesting. I'm freehanding the camera right now, so don't mind the shakiness because I need to get into the macro shots, because the biggest issue is not so much the analog board. Tuner maybe, but the tuner looks like it had a little bit of recap work done to it already, and you can see some corrosion in the vias. So this one is a yikes at the moment. I don't know what we're going to run into just yet, but perhaps the reason why we really need to get into this is because we have a lot of stuff going on in here. So yeah, that one's really badly corroded. I'm kind of worried about that. We have similar issues going on up here. There's a lot of capacitor corrosion. So what I need to do is I need to get this in my white vinegar bath, because I want to try, because the problem is if you wash this board, you're going to get all these electrolyte salts left over and it creates an oxidized mess. So I want to see if I can't scrub this with white vinegar first before I pull the capacitors off and actually do something about that. I want to see if it cleans up better, but because the issue that I'm going to have right now is a lot of these chips are going to probably have to come off the board because some of these are just gross. And the camera isn't even doing justice. It makes it look cleaner than what it really is. But this stuff is soaked. Yeah, I'm going to probably need to remove all of this off the board and clean all of that under there. I don't know yet, so it's actually pretty atrocious. But yeah, anyway, so I'm going to get set up and get this stuff cleaned before I actually order the capacitors to fix this. Ah yes, the nice pungent odor of white vinegar. So I've got it just kind of like soaking in here, and I'm using a old toothbrush to just kind of work it in. I don't know if this will actually neutralize the electrolyte or not. I might have to go at it with some acetone. We'll have to see, but right now I'm just just cleaning it up as best as I possibly can. Especially down in here. It's just, this thing's really gross. Really, really gross. So yeah, that's the basic idea. Alright, now that the two of these been soaking a bit in vinegar, and I've been scrubbing the crap out of it, even down here, I'm going to go wash this off and bake dry it a bit. I will say though that the board here has a lot of damage. I've tried to clean it up. Now, is this critical? No. This is the stereo demodulator for MTS audio over the coax. So will it work without it? Yes, but you won't have stereo. The problem is there's a blob chip underneath this, so if there's any open traces, there is no fixing it. At least not easily. So hopefully that's okay. But for now, I've got all this soaking, and then we're going to wash it up and bake dry it. The board has been washed and dried. Everything looks good there, luckily. So it didn't come out as bad as I thought it was going to be, but it should be alright. I'm going to go ahead and pull those caps off and replace it. Now, unfortunately, this one, the unfortunate thing with that is I don't think I can fix that just because of how bad that board is. So there's clearly a missed solder joint right there, so I will fix that. But if this board doesn't work, that's basically it, because there's really no way to fix that. But however, I will in the meantime pull this tuner apart and get it recapped as well. This is going to be a quick video, not so much a full in-depth like I did in my previous Macintosh TV, because it's basically the same thing. It's a wash, rinse, repeat. So if you want to see that, you can find a playlist on my channel that goes over it. But I'm just going to go ahead and recap this thing, and then we're going to test it and see what happens. I've got to order a capacitor kit for the analog board. I've got to do that first because I do not have any. Alright, now that everything has been recapped, we have everything there. All the new caps are installed. So the only thing left to do now is to pull out my Macintosh TV, shove the boards in there, and then see what happens. Hopefully it runs and everything works, including sound. We will find out. The analog board will have to come after the fact when I get the caps in. But first I want to test the logic board, and more importantly, that tuner, because I have my suspicions and doubts. Alright, so here we go. I've got my Macintosh TV out. I just got the rear cover off, and it scares me because I'm afraid it's going to get broken. So, here we go. So, does it work, or does it explode into a ball of flames? We shall see. So we got you. Got you. Does it blow up? No explosions, which I didn't expect there to be any. Okay, next thing is I need the antenna. I know I'm being a little overzealous here with the, oh, this thing's going to work right out of the box, which I have my suspicions that this tuner is completely screwed. The motherboard, I don't see a problem with the logic board, because the original owner showed me a picture. The board was working. The analog board had some serious issues, but the logic board was working even with those bad caps. So I got my old rabbit ears. There's a transmitter in the other room, which is why it's like that. So we're just going to put you there for now. Alright, so here we go. That is a no. What? Okay. Let's see. It's working. I don't know if I can adjust the shutter speed while it's live. No, this thing's got issues. No, this thing's got issues. For sure, this logic board has issues. The only problem is, I don't think I can actually switch to TV mode. Maybe I can. It, like, sticks right here. Yeah. Okay. Come on. You can do it. It was doing this at the VCF show, too, so I expect that. But it will go eventually. There we go. Hey, what do you know? Yeah, that's kind of what I thought. Yeah, that's a no. Yeah, that's kind of what I thought. That tuner is toast. Okay. Judging by how bad the the traces and stuff were on that board, I am not surprised. I think that's basically it for the tuner, unfortunately. Yeah, that is a negative. Actually, you know what? I wonder. It's possible that the wire is bad on this. You know what? Never mind. I think the wire is bad on this. Yeah, it is. I think the wire finally went bad on this antenna. I think so. Let me get around this tripod and adjust that again, because I think the wire has gone bad. Yeah, I can just move this wire around. Contrast, it's turned all the way down. So you can't adjust the contrast with the remote, unfortunately. But yeah, that's the performance was never that bad on this particular setup here. Okay, I think I have the shutter adjusted properly. ISO 400. So it's close enough. Anyways, this thing will not shut. This is gonna, that extension's gonna have to be disabled. Yeah, I'm gonna have to disable that extension. Alright, so let's try this again. It's been off for a little bit. See if it starts crashing and doing weird things, because I might have a temperamental solder joint somewhere. And there goes the exposure again. So let's see how well that works. No, it's fine. So I have a temperamental logic board. I've got a bad antenna wire, and the exposure is being weird. Ugh, go away. Let's see if it'll actually let me. No, it won't. That needs to go away. Actually, never mind. It'll auto do its thing. So there it is, channel 6, which is okay. Go out, get out of there. Will it shut down? No. There it goes. It's just the background taking forever. All right, it shuts down. Yeah, everything I'm having, all the issues I'm having is a software configuration problem. All right, moving right along. All right, so it looks like we have, you know, I double checked the antenna with my multimeter and it's okay. So the problem we have is the tuner, but more importantly, I've got audio playing through the modulator. We've got no sound. So the unfortunate reality is, I think that tuner is shot, and it's that stupid little module that has bad vias, broken solder joints. We'll have to see. I might be able to patch it. I don't know. I'm gonna have to take it apart and fully go through it. But before I do that, I'm gonna put my tuner on there, because I want to make sure that my tuner is okay and it's not a problem with the logic board. So let's go ahead and do that now, just to roll out that particular situation. Alright, so the board is switched out. We'll see what happens. His logic board, my tuner. So we're going to find out right now if we have a problem with the tuner or the board. Alright, so now that we're loaded, see what it does. Huh, same problem. We have no sound from the tuner and we still have messed up picture. Okay. Alright, let me, I don't know if that's, yeah, I don't know if that's my board. Well, the tuner is doing the same thing. So let's put my logic board back in there and roll out my setup just just because I want to make sure everything's okay here. Alright, so now it's my logic board with his tuner, so it's the opposite way around. Yeah, boy, this is a fun thing about testing electronics. At least I have my boards to test with his boards to rule things out. Because if it does the same thing now, then I know it's a problem with this antenna setup is going on. But I should have sound, because this works at the show without a problem. Alright, so my logic board, his tuner, and I gotta wait for this thing to go away because it takes 15,000 years. Ooh, now we have black screen. Did something just die on my end? No, I don't think so. Now I have blank screen. Okay, and still no sound. That's very strange. So you know what I'm gonna do? I am gonna go switch things around over on the modulator end, but I don't have the snow anymore. So that is different. I switched sources and I still have black screen with no audio. So, okay. Time to put my tuner in my board and see what happens. Alright, well, scratch that for a moment. I was being dumb. I actually forgot to plug the antenna into the tuner. So, let's try that again with his tuner in my logic board. Let's see what we get. Ah, there we go. And still not good. And still no sound. Okay, we've definitely got problems. Yeah, that's weird. Yeah, I wonder if my modulator decided to go bad. That would be hilarious if this is all caused by a bad modulator on my end. Because I'm getting the exact same fault with his tuner and my board. So, alright, let's try my tuner and my board, which I know worked at the show. So, we've got the same exact fault. We've got the same exact logic board that I know works. So let's try that out again. This time I'm just gonna go straight to my tuner, my board, which I know without a doubt worked because it worked at the show. Now, granted, everything always works until it breaks, right? So that's always the case. Now, shove you in there. This time, remembering to screw the antenna on the tuner because, yeah, that would certainly help. So, screw you on. Now, power on. Alright, try this again. Alright, so take number 69,420. This time with my logic board, my tuner, with the antenna plugged in. Hey, I got sound now. Alright, so we've got multiple issues. We don't have audio on his logic board at all with either tuner, and both tuners have the noise. So let's see, what can we figure out? Okay, both tuners have the noise, but that could be a problem going on with my end. I don't know that yet. My board has sound with my tuner, which means his board does not produce audio. His tuner is also not producing audio, which I expected that because the audio is generated by this little thing right here. That's the demod. So what happens is there's an MPX audio that comes out of the tuner over to here, and then that demods it into the left and right audio. So if that does not produce audio, you're not going to get it on the screen. So, all right, let's see, because I'm pretty sure if I go into display settings here, yeah, if I go to mono, but I'm not sure. Anyway, so let me shut that down. All right, so we've got a few things we need to figure out. I got to get my control in order and make sure that my signal coming out of that modulator is good, because if it's not, this is going to cause all of our problems. All right, well, that basically says we don't have a problem with our setup, because that's clear. So everything's working there. So we do not have a problem with our setup. The problem is that antenna must have gone bad. I don't know why that is. That's so weird, because that's my board with my tuner and now I've got noise. Huh, well, we got to figure that out. So I did some more tinkering around, and it's definitely this tuner, because I can hold, or not the tuner, but the antenna, because I can hold this cable and it clears up immensely. See? It's definitely the antenna. Something happened to this antenna. I'm not sure what, but something happened to it for sure. Yeah, I think I was having trouble with this because I took this antenna with me to the Airbnb at VCF, and I couldn't get any digital channels at all. And I used to. That's how I know there's something wrong with this antenna. This is a more modern style antenna too, from RCA. It's got a 2015 date code, so yeah. Anyways, so that the system is working fine, which I knew it would, because this is my board. So yeah, we got two problems. Problem number one is his board is not taking audio at all, and his tuner is not producing audio at all. So we got two problems. So I'm going to have to look at the board, the solder joints, figure out which circuit is responsible for the audio path, and then fix it. So yeah, there was what was it, 10 minutes now, 15 minutes of just screwing around, but hey, at least now we know where we are. All right, now that I got the board off, this is what I mean. Like, I mean, it's pretty bad up there, which we can see that, but when you flip it over, that's really bad. You can see the corrosion in there. And unfortunately, there's a blob chip, so that's an issue. You can't get up under there. I mean, you could, but not the kind of labor that I want to put into it. So unfortunately, I'm going to do my best with this, but I think we're going to hit a point of no return eventually with that module. And this is needed to produce audio out of the tuner, because this is your stereo demod. So that is unfortunate. Alright, so in order to fix this we're just going to order a new one. Luckily, I can buy them brand new for $10.85 on eBay. It's a slightly different design compared to the original, but that's essentially it. So if I buy that one and then just recap it, it should be okay. But that's what I need. That's the stereo demultiplexer. If anyone's curious, that's the part number of the unit, which is right here. You can kind of see it. SBX 1637A-01. I'm going to assume the O2 is probably the revision. So it's a newer revision, but it'll still work. It'll do what we need it to do. So that is what we're going to do, is we're just going to order a new module to replace the existing one, and that's how we're going to fix this. Alright, so I've decided to take all the components off this board because every one of these was real dingy. Well, this is the audio circuit for the AV input and the tuner, including this chip here, which is your tone, bass, treble, volume for all of it. And we have some 324 op amps, and we have a 4053 mux, one for each channel, that's responsible for switching between here and here. There's nothing I went over this board. I got the microscope out. I went over this board 2 or 3 times now, and there are some areas that are a little bit of a concern, but nothing that's broken. There's nothing that would cause a loss of audio in both channels consecutively, except for maybe a bad chip. So I went through the top side of the board 2 or 3 times. I decided to go through the bottom side of the board and do the same thing. Again, there's a couple questionable spots, but I checked them through the vias and all the way through the board, and they're good. So there's nothing, from a copper standpoint that would cause it not to have audio. So I decided to go through these 2 chips here to make sure there's no broken connections. Same deal there, and there's none. Everything else up here, it has to do with video, and video works fine. So yeah, the only thing I know to do at this point is to order up some new chips and drop them in there and see what happens, really. I've already got this guy here on order, so I need to order the rest of that and hope we can fix this problem. Alright, unfortunately, my little microphone thing is dead, and the batteries don't last very long in that thing, so back to freehanding the camera again, but is what it is. It takes me like 5 times as long to get these projects done when I'm videoing it with all of this various hardware versus just doing it, but it is what it is. So while I'm waiting on the parts to arrive on the logic board, the logic board is almost done. I'm still waiting on a chip, and I'm still waiting on the MTS module for the tuner, and then we can try to test that again. I'm still a little bit concerned about the instability I saw in the very beginning, but it hasn't showed up again, so I'm just going to leave that be. So anyways, we're going to move on to the analog board while we're waiting around, and console 5 to the rescue again for that. Now, I could have sourced all of those myself because I've done it many times. Problem is, I'm just lazy and I want to get this project done because it's for someone else, it's not mine, so I need to get this stuff done because I think he's going to be using this stuff for VCF Southwest to some degree. I don't know the story behind that, but I got to get it done. So this video is going to be a little bit shorter. So I'm just going to go ahead and just wash, rinse, repeat like I've done on my previous videos. We're going to pull the shields off and we're going to recap this board. And I will bring you back for testing. Or I'll bring you back if there's any other weird anomalies I run into with this board. So let's get started. Alright, all new capacitors have been installed. So we went ahead and took care of the ones that are down there and everywhere else around this board. Now, there are a couple capacitors left over that do not appear to go into this board. Even the 2 that are hiding back there are replaced. So my thought for those is there's probably a couple different board revisions of this thing, but anyways, it's all taken care of now, so we've got all new capacitors in here. And of course, those were leaking really badly. Because if we look, you can see how it's turned the glue green. And it's corroded really badly. So those were leaking, and then this cluster here had issues. They were leaking. So, and this one, I was just starting on one of them, but those were the only ones I saw that were visibly leaking, which is down here in this cluster, which makes sense because this is a low ESR section. None of the rest of them were leaking, but it comes in a kit, so I just went ahead and changed them all anyways. So there we go. That's done. So now we just have to wait for all of the parts to arrive for the logic board. then we can get all of this stuff in another machine and test it. So hopefully everything works. At least that's the hope anyways. Now that the analog board is done, the part finally came in for the MTS demodulator. That's a new old stock part. So the original one is from 93, which has got a 93 date code right there. The replacement is from 2000. And I checked these caps. None of these caps are leaking, so I'm just going to leave them alone right now. But that's a newer version of the same exact part. And just for a few bucks on eBay, I got the replacement. So yeah, that is the stereo MTS demodulator for the tuner. Is it critical? No. There's a way you can bypass that. I forget exactly which pins, so you just take the tuner audio out and just jumper it to the two analog outputs. Not a big deal, but I'm trying to get it fully functional, and I do have a stereo modulator that I can use to test this. But for now, that part's back in there, so I think I can probably go ahead and test this to make sure that restored the audio on my board, just to make sure that the tuner's good to go. And then when I know the tuner's good to go, then I can start waiting, because I'm still waiting on a chip for the logic board. So I can go ahead and test the tuner to make sure that that's been fixed, and if that's been fixed, we can move on to the logic board when the rest of the parts come in. Well, that works. So that MTS module is perfectly fine. So we got audio back on the tuner. Now again, this was with my logic board. I'm still waiting on those parts to come in, but the tuner works. The tuner is fixed. Well, besides that, but that's the problem with the antenna. Because I bet if I touch this, maybe it's the other one. I don't know, but I know there's a thing going on with it. Yeah. I'm still waiting on some parts to arrive, but I have others. So what I did was I just ordered parts to replace all of these, just to get them out of my way. I went through the microscope. I have not found any open traces there yet. It's hard to say if there's a via open, but I haven't seen any open traces. So I'm just going to replace all of these chips and hope I get my audio back. Still waiting on this one to arrive, but I have all the other ones, so I'm just going to go ahead and drop those on. Alright, at least now that we know the tuner module works. So this worked perfectly fine. That module is perfectly good. Now that we know that, some time has passed and the parts have finally arrived. Now unfortunately I had to order it in a lot of tin, but at least I have the parts now for this chip. So I'm going to go ahead and get that in. And we're going to test this board again and hope that fixes our audio problem, because I didn't see any broken traces. So we have two new LM324s, a 4053 on this side. And along with a new one of those, I can't really see a problem at this point. I took the shotgun approach because they were all heavily corroded. So let's see what happens. Alright, so that's all been soldered in place. So hopefully this thing works. I'm crossing my fingers, so let's give it a try. Alright, well, we're connected, but no sound. Nada. Dang. Yeah, I was kind of hoping it was one of those chips that was bad, but it's not. Alright, well, what I could do is hook up the AV input jacks and see if I get audio through that. But I have system sound, so I don't know. There's something up with that. Problem is there's no schematics, so it's really hard to tell how the audio path works on this thing. Alright, so here's where we are at with the Macintosh TV. Since we've got audio problems with the circuitry, the only way to really find out what's going on with it is to hook up the oscilloscope, which I can't do while it's in the chassis. So in order to be able to do further troubleshooting, I have to build a test bench rig. Now, what I could probably do, I don't have a spare CRT or anything like that, so I think what I'm going to do is just make up a wiring harness to hook up some modern stuff. So I've got a bunch of these old, parts boards for the 5000 or 5 series, and I pulled the connector off so I don't have to cut the harness, because I was given this harness to use as a test bench setup for a 575. Now, what I want to do is I'm just going to make a test rig for this. I'm going to try to wire up the VGA connector so I can plug a monitor into this. The problem is this board uses composite sync. It does have a separate vertical sync, but it uses composite sync instead of a horizontal sync. So I need to make sure my Dell monitor that I have will actually sync to it. I don't know. That's to be determined. But more importantly, we've got to wire in the power supply here, and it's usually 1-for-1 besides this -5 volt. Now, modern ATX power supplies do not have this -5 volt, but the older ones do, so we have to come up with that. But on top of that, the standby signal to turn the power supply on is an opposite polarity. This thing is expected to be driven high to turn it on and not low, where the ATX standard wants you to pull it low to turn it on. So we have to invert the polarity. So we're going to have to rig up a little circuit to do that, but that's not that big of a deal. So hopefully we can build something to do some proper testing here. All right, well, unfortunately, this is aluminum wire. Why? Is aluminum cheaper to make than steel wire? I'm not sure. But this is aluminum wire. I can't solder it, so I don't want to cut the end off my ATX power supply, and I'm on a time limit, so I gotta come up with a different tactic. I have some ideas. Enter Mr. Little M12. M1212, I should say. Now, unfortunately, this one was damaged in shipping, and actually, this has a lot of issues because of that. It doesn't work properly at all. So I need to fix this eventually anyways. But for now, I'm going to borrow the picture tube so we can try to get this project done and out the door. So to do that, I got to take this thing all the way apart, and I want to take the circuit board out, because what we're going to do is we're going to put the LC575 analog board to this picture tube, and that will allow us to do a couple things actually. One, it'll allow me to test the logic or the analog board that we just recapped, but also that'll allow me to shove this off to the side and out of the way so I can work on the logic board right here in front. I'm probably going to face the picture tube this way, I think, move all this stuff out of my way, and then that way it'll give me, because if it sits right here, I've got no room, so I have to turn it sideways. And if I turn it sideways, it'll allow me to get the harness and stuff out here in the open, and then I can glance around the corner to make sure everything's working. So I think that's what we're going to do. Now that we're taking this thing apart, this one got rocked so hard in shipping. Look what happened here. It just like it took a bam. And it's probably the problem, is I bet you the circuit board is cracked. So that is definitely not good. So yeah, let's get this thing apart even further. So instead, we're going for maximum jank. Now I had to take the entire board assembly out of there. I'm not going to go over that in this video. That's for a whole separate video. But I got the picture tube attached to that analog board. Now this isn't the one I recapped. This is one out of my part stash. I do not know if it works. It may not. I don't know. But this is what we're going to try, because in case we screw something up, whatever, I don't care, right? So anyways, yeah, maximum jank. It ain't pretty, but you know what? It works. Our maximum jank actually works. Now the color's going to be off, everything's going to be off, but I don't care because this is just a test jig anyways. So we are good to go, I think. So we now have this thing fired up and showing the TV image, but we've only got audio coming in here now. So what I wanted to do was I wanted to start right here at this TEA6330 to make sure I'm getting a signal in both channels. So we have 19 and 2. So 19 is here. And it looks like if I probe on 19, we have audio coming in. So let's check the other channel right here. It's coming in. Alright. Let's check. Okay, 7 and 8. It looks like 7 and 8 are shorted together. So let's just check 7 and 8. And we have audio. The other one is 13 and 14, which is directly across from that. So let's check 13 and 14, and we have audio. So that circuit's working fine. So we're losing it elsewhere. Because remember, we had it on one channel, but not the other. So we're losing it elsewhere. We have two 10 microfarad capacitors here, so let's check those. That one we have, well, looks like we have audio there. And let's check the other one, and nothing. Okay, so, alright, we've got an LM324. I don't have a schematic, so I'm just kind of going at it. So I know how the 324 is structured, so we kind of have a blip there, but nothing. So that's output 1. Let's look at output 2, nothing. Let's look at output 3, nothing. Let's look at output 4, nothing. So that might be for the tuner, not sure. Now the second 324, which is up here, remember we've replaced these chips. So, oh, that's output 1. That's output 2. It's output 3. And output 4. So that's irrelevant. So we have output 1 and 2 working. So let me unplug one of the jacks here. I want to see if the outputs change. So output 1 is now dead. Plug that back in. Output 1 comes back. Alright, so the left and right audio is right here. So, but we don't know what this one's used for yet. This might be for the tuner. Not sure. The problem is, it's hard to probe the tuner because the tuner sits over top of all of this. So I need to signal inject the tuner, but I need to chase that path through this circuit. Step 1, though, is not to mess with the tuner. Step 1 is to try to actually restore the audio from both of these channels. I'm going to plug some headphones in and see what we get first, though. So I think here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to grab my logic board that I know works. Then from that point, I'm going to start chasing signals up here. And I'm going to mark down, take a picture, and then use Microsoft Paint, whatever. I'm going to mark down exactly which the signals are based on what these are doing. I got to figure out where all of my right channel signals are and where all my left channel signals are while it's on the RCA cables. And I can do the same thing with the tuner if I can get in here. That's to be debated. That way I know where everything is, and then I can compare a known control to this board. That way we can say, oh, well, my signal's dead there. Why is it dead there? Or it's dead here. Why is it dead here? Because there's no schematic for this, and that's the only way that I know how to troubleshoot something like this, is I need a control. Because what we do is we compare and contrast. So that's our next method here. All right, we were able to take some measurements with a good unit, and this is what we have. Ignore the colors. The important thing is we got left, we got right, we got right. This is a larger signal, right, left, and then left, right, and then a couple of lefts and a couple of rights on this mux. Now, this doesn't have anything on it, and that's probably because that's for the tuner section, if I were to guess. But that's what we have, and we don't have any audio on either one of these. Now, remember on the other board that's not working, I had an audio signal here. Not supposed to be there, so we got to check that out. And I don't remember seeing an audio signal here either. We'll switch back and double check, but I think we've got something going on in that circuit. Probably the muxing, if I were to guess. Alright, from what we know here, I think we might be getting somewhere, because if we look at this op amp right there, we'll check the output on one side, which is, according to my diagram, the right channel. and there's a signal there. But if we take a look at the left channel, which is right here, there's nothing. So there's problem number one. But why? If we take a look at the input pin, look at all this noise we have showing up right there. That's not normal because that's not there on the control. So that's one problem we got to solve. I don't know why that is. There could be an open trace or something, or there's a problem with the mux. I checked this and it's fine. I get the same readings. Also, if I look at this capacitor, I have a signal there, which is not supposed to be there because it's not on the other one. So I'm missing a signal here, but I have a signal here when it's supposed to be the other way around. Yeah. So that means I gotta chase the traces in and out of this chip because one could be open. But also, there's an input engaged here that's not supposed to be here. The only thing that I can think that caused that is there's another one of these 4053 muxes on the other side. There could be a control signal open to that, or the mux itself is bad. Found it, and it's obvious. So you see how on mine I had to make a jumper wire to this channel over here? It's the opposite problem on this one. The trace under this capacitor that I replaced, the via, is open. So this cap is not connected to the op amp, so the input's floating, which makes a lot of sense. It's why I have a lot of noise there, and I don't have sound. That explains why I don't have any audio on the actual left channel, but it doesn't explain why I don't have tuner audio, unless tuner's only giving me left channel, right, instead of right channel. So, anyways, I've got to fix that, patch that wire, and then I got to chase the tuner audio and figure out what's going on with that. And there it is. I got the amplifier hooked up. We have both channels. So if I check U, we have it. And if I check to the other side, we have it. All right. Now, that's been fixed, because if I unplug one, I'll lose one of the two channels. Yep. It's working perfectly fine. Alright, so now we need to set up for the tuner, which means I gotta go get the tuner. I gotta get a signal set up to transmit into it and get all that figured out so I can, determine what to do about that. Alright, so I got the tuner up and going. The signal's barely coming in. I think the modulator's finally dead. Or something, I don't know. Or maybe it's this thing. There's something definitely up with that, but anyway, so I got sound, but this time it's only coming in on the left channel, which makes sense because this was open. That's why we didn't have any sound. Now that this is fixed, we have sound, so we're missing the right audio from the tuner. So we need to figure out, okay, what it is. So this has two outputs going out from the NTSD mod. So if I probe U on this one here, I gotta figure out hold on. This is not good. I gotta do this up to like 2 volts. So we have that. What's the other channel? Do we have anything coming off of U? We do. So both channels are outputting. So that means we have another open trace coming off the tuner somewhere going to the left channel. So we need to find that. Now the problem is, how do I probe it? I can't. So I got to take this tuner off and move it to the other side like this. It's fun, but we'll get it. And I really have the jank amplifier turned up a notch on this one. I had to move the tuner on the other side. Alright, I had to loop a wire around because this shield is the actual signal ground, or it doesn't work without it. Very strange. Anyway, so here we go again. I'm measuring this op amp output here, and I have a signal. If we measure the output on this side, I just get noise. All right. So if I measure the input on this side, here we go again. That one's floating. So this has no input, it's floating. So I got to chase it back, but it looks like it goes to these crusty capacitors, so perhaps I have an open trace here. Because if I look at the input on the other one, I don't have that problem. So let me look at the capacitor here on the good channel. Looks like we have signal on that side, we have a signal on this side of C127. We look at C128 and nada. Alright, so I'm going to do a little test. I'm going to take my finger and hold the probe, or the screwdriver. I'm going to touch this capacitor. You hear noise. Now if I short the capacitor to the next cap over, how about that? Just to show you what I'm doing. Do the other side. So the circuit's working, it's just we got an open connection. So I got to figure out what went open here. So that's what we have. So let me go ahead and shut this guy down. I'm going to shut you down so we can work on this thing. Alright, so that's what our problem is. We've got a open connection somewhere in this territory that's causing our problem. I found the second break. So right here, C128. I'm going to move the lens here. You probably can't tell, but on the left hand side of C128 where that trace goes in the corner, there's a break right there which runs off to that little via right here where I just shined it up with the solder. So if I take a meter from that via, it runs right to the tuner input pin. So I'm thinking, okay, well, the next tuner input pin over goes right to C127, so that makes sense. So C127 and C128 are the coupling capacitors for the audio input from the tuner. And because of how dingy those looked, that explains it. So we're going to have to solder that capacitor back on and then just run a patch wire over, and that should solve all of our problems. Alright, so that patch wire is now reinstalled, or a new one installed, so hopefully that solves our problem. So here we go. We got to wake this guy up, and we got to switch you over to tuner mode here. Do we have sound? Yes, we do. So there we go. So we have stereo audio. That's all it was. Had to have that patch wire done. So I think we can finally call this motherboard done. Alright, now that we're basically done with this and we're 100% functional, what I want to do next, since I have all this apart anyways, shut that off. I'm going to go grab the analog board that I just recapped and put that in here, test it all, and make sure it's all good to go. Now, I'm not going to adjust that analog board because that analog board does not go with the CRT. So if I adjust it to this CRT, then it's going to screw up the adjustments for his CRT. So I'm not going to do that. But I am going to get it connected, and I want to make sure that everything works good. And if everything works good, then we are going to move on and pack this stuff up because we are done. All right, here goes nothing. His analog board is installed. Let's see what it does. Make sure it works. There we go. Really now? It powered up and then shut down. Huh. So maybe there is a problem with this analog board. Ooh, do we have some troubleshooting we gotta do? Nope, it's up now. Oh no, that was kind of weird, but okay. Yeah, it's up. But I did notice something interesting. This cap is a little bulgy, and I just put that in there. Did I install it properly? Yeah, I did. That is correct. Yeah. Weird. Interesting. So it's up and running. Oh, yeah. That's not good. It triggers the X-ray shutdown, that's for sure. There's something really wrong with this board. I have not seen a fault like that before. And then it shuts down. Alright, so we've got some fault chasing with this one, ladies and gentlemen. Boy, do we ever. After several tries, it's on now. Ignore it being over bright because it's not adjusted for that CRT, but has me slightly concerned. So what I'm doing is I'm pressing on the board and seeing it if it would shut down, and it's not shutting down. So I was like, maybe if it was a bad connection or something like that. I think we have a bad flyback on this one. It's like arcing internally and it's shutting it down because you could see it in the picture. It triggers the shutdown when it happens. Because these monitors have a circuit in here. It's called X-ray protect, which is multi-function, multi-purpose. So if the high voltage drifts up too high or something like that, or if there's a weird overcurrent issue or anything that trips that out, it will trip that circuit, which shuts down the horizontal drive. And when the horizontal drive shuts down, it turns the monitor off, right? So that's what we have going on. Shut this thing down. Okay, so it is off. And the way this thing works is the power supply circuit for the analog board runs all the time, even when the computer's off. The computer power supply shuts down, but the analog power supply, which is that second transformer right there, the first one you see, it stays on all the time. Oh, there it goes again. Yeah, that's a very, very, very strange setup. And it's entirely possible because I have the G2 drive turned all the way up. Too much for this CRT. That's probably what it is. So that's got to be turned down. I can't run it like this for an extended period of time. Yeah, look at that. Ooh, you see that drifting around? I think I think the B plus is drifting around. You know what? I am starting to suspect the B plus is wandering around, which means that our TDA 4605 is probably bad, or the opto isolator that's part of it is likely bad. It's hard to say. Because now I'm just, at this point, I'm just guessing. I'd have to stare at the voltage chart, which there isn't a voltage chart, but I'd have to stare at the collector voltage going to the horizontal output transistor. Not the collector itself, but the voltage coming into the flyback, which then goes to the collector, because I can't measure it at the collector. You'll blow your meter up. So I have to measure it coming out of that, because if that voltage is jumping around, that'll cause it too. That'll cause everything we're seeing. What I've done is I've taken my upside down can air and I'm trying to hit this circuit back in here with this freeze spray. And I can't get this thing to act up at all. So it's definitely very, well, I mean, it's flickering because of the camera, but yeah, I'm trying to get this thing to act up. Just to see if the problem's in this circuit. I don't think it is. No, I don't think so. Definitely strange. Now it's running fine. It hasn't acted up this whole time, but yeah, I still think it's either that circuit over there or maybe there's a hairline fracture in the board from how it was shipped to me. Anything's possible. Now it's doing it. It's freaking out now. I've watched, see? From a distance without the flicker, it's hard to tell, but it's like getting dimmer and brighter and taller and shorter. That's the power supply. Yep, they did it again. The power supply is definitely failing. So we've got bad power supply circuitry. We've definitely got bad power supply circuitry. For sure. And it's not affected by percussive maintenance. Not really. Ooh, there it goes. Oh, yeah, Soon as I touch this transformer, bam. It's shut down. Yeah. Soon as I was touching this transformer over here. So that's where our problem is. And you know what, though? I remember I had an iMac G3 slot load back in the mid-2000s that did the same thing. And the only way I could keep it running was flexing the board. And no matter, I resoldered the entire board and it still had the same problem. And the heatsink that sits, because if you got the monitor here, there's a heatsink that sits right there. I had to push on that to keep the thing running. Otherwise, it would do the same exact thing. This has the same exact fault. Now, the question is, where is it? Is it the potentiometer's bad? Is it the 4605? Is it the opto isolator? Or is it one of the support components? It's in that circuit. It's in that circuit, for sure. It is in that circuit, for sure. Push on it. No. See, it's not. It's very intermittent. Like, I'm touching on it right now. It's not changing anything. So I know there's a problem there, but I don't know where. The way it's acting is definitely B+. The way it's acting is B+ for sure. That much I know. Oh, see that? As soon as I hit it with the canned air, it becomes more erratic. And then I just like go see how the raster jumped a little. So if I do that, yeah, it's in the power supply for sure. It's definitely that power supply. I know I keep saying that over and over again, but I just have a feeling that's where it is. So I think we're just going to have to start changing out those parts, clean up the potentiometer, change the 4605 and then the opto isolator, and then we'll go from there. Alright, so I got all the old parts out of there and replaced with some off of a parts board, which I knew worked. So here we go. Let's try this again. It's on. Let's see what happens. I'm gonna pause this to let it boot because it's gonna take eons. Alright. So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna check regulation. See how these dialogues are up? Remember last time this raster would jump quite a bit with those dialogues up. Oh yeah, it's solid now. The menu bar isn't jumping up off the screen and doing stuff as I close the dialog boxes. So that's exactly what it was. The one of those components is bad. Chances are it's the 4605, but I changed all of it. So, you know, when it comes to one of those being bad, you shotgun everything in the chain. So it's stable now. It's fixed. So that's likely what the original fault was, and then the capacitors leaking were secondary. So wow, this thing had a lot of things going on with it. We had the capacitors on the logic board, we had broken traces, we had a completely rotten away MTS decoder we had to replace with another one. We had the friggin' analog board had leaking capacitors up in the front here. We changed all those. And then, to top it all off, we had a bad switching mode power supply regulation circuit in there, which is why it was doing what it was doing. But it's stable now. So that's a clue. If the image is flickering, goes in and out, and shuts off, or if the boxes change on the screen and the raster moves around with those boxes really bad, that's a clue that you have a problem with the regulation circuit. So that's been solved. So now I think we can finally conclude this video. Wow, this is a long one. So hopefully you've all learned something through all of this. I know I certainly have. So don't forget to hit the like and subscribe and all that fun stuff. Please feel free to leave a comment if you have one. And that's going to wrap this project up, ladies and gentlemen. Until next time, guys, thank you for watching. You know the cool thing about running your own transmitter?
Money that hasn't been
I can put the little severe bugs on the screen that I used to see when I was a child back in the 90s on WKRC and WCPO. I still remember that from my brain.